University of Science in Malaysia?
No science. Oh, I can't remember. But the student actually
Extended 10 days, how about that?
All this?
I have a problem.
You can see to as soon as possible and registration
81 ค่ะ
ไม่ทำแล้วนะหยุดรับของเลยค่ะไม่งั้นคนจะออกมาอยู่มันไม่ได้ไม่สีเดียวแล้วมีสถานไม่ลงท้าย
You can have to find your name on the program.
Sorry?
But it's enjoyable.
Minister of Science and Technology, and Professor Leonardo de Castro, University of the Philippines. Please come to the panel, please. Thank you. Professor Chayapal Azaria, President of the Asian Bioethics Association, to give the welcoming speech. Professor Azaria.
So, the dignitaries on the dais and all the members and delegates, I wish to welcome you to this important Asian Bioethics Conference. And I have chosen to give a brief account on all nations and the next generation. And biosphere has its limitation, and I have my own limitation, 5 minutes talk. So I will limit myself to 5 points. And how do we respect our biosphere? Science is neutral, but technology is not. So let us take a fresh look at the universe and our Earth. This is our beautiful biosphere, and it's the only planet that sustains our life. But recently, the Earth has lost its sanctity. And this is our beautiful planet, and it is the only planet with life. And I was disturbed to get a greeting card this 2007, light in the planet has been a decorative material. Next one. And in the cricket season, the earth has been put into a cricket ball. It's beaten by both the bowler and the batsman. And so, instead of the earth sustaining us, we are now taking the earth on our back. And so that the point I want to reinforce is that the woman and the child, the next generation, is in great jeopardy. And to do that, we have to have a sustainable development, sustainable education in bioethics. And I want to give 5 points which is relevant to India, and I also hope that it will be relevant to all nations, and especially to the next generation. And it is the killing of infants, about 30 and odd, murdered and dumped in the sewage gutter. And recently we have improved our technology from female infanticide to female feticide, 10 million in 20 years, the salient on the one on the frame. And we also read about H1 virus. People say that we are only 2 mutations away for a pandemic of virus disease. And we are also mobile addicts in India, to youngsters addict to mobile. And we have 2 points. Microwave in our home cooks the food in 10 minutes, but mobile microwave cooks our brain in 10 years. And also the eardrum is damaged, and I know a case in India where he cannot maintain his balance. His eardrum and the balancing wheel is damaged. So when we need to have a brain to decide, it's already cooked, and we need to hear the law, it's already done. Next one, please. And we also talk about gay rights, 2 options. If it is human rights, it's yes, but biologically it's unproductive, so we have to reconsider that decision. And we also have a global warming, and we have a lot of gases, greenhouse gases. And what the earth prohibits, we create, and so our civilization advances the process of global warming. In India, this is a scene that we get a multi-story buildings. Each floor has 6 or 7 air conditioners, so the gases for global warming is increased. And in the China's Tang Dynasty and Mayan civilization, it's reported to have been declined due to global warming. And so the climate change, 2006 is the 6th warmest year since 1850. And in 2100, it's going to be 5.8 degrees rise in temperature. And if the Himalayan glaciers melt, both China and India are in great trouble. And so, definitely it is important to keep our climate intact, otherwise kingdoms will vanish. The 2 important items that we need to be careful about is food. We will be shortage of food. And we will be also shortage of water. Great 2 vital resources. And also we might expect tsunami-like catastrophe. We are forced to produce more from less. There are three white, 3 yellows, which never we see in nature. And the T's are more in number, but the components are true, but the composition is bad, is untrue. So we also have 2 Taj Mahals. If you have come to Agra, you might see, but the components are true, but the composition is untrue. Next one, please. So we need to give our world to the next generation. If there is no next generation, we need not worry. Next one, please. And so if you only heeded the warning, you would have avoided a lot of trouble. And I was told yesterday there was snowing in Kyoto. Next one, please. And so this is Indonesia. It's happening for real. And we in India, February is not our rainy season, but we had our rains in February. And so it came in the newspaper. Many politicians think that it is mirage, not true, but we need to take care of it. Thank you. So this is real. Thank you and I wish the conference will be a success and you will be enjoying your conference. Thank you very much.
Next, I would like to invite Professor Suchanda to give the opening speech. Professor Suchanda.
Thank you. Your Excellency, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I am rather stunned by our Professor Chayapon Mazaria welcoming remarks, but I think it's open today with a very, very important message. And I think that will answer very well to all of us why we are all here in this room, trying to do something for our beloved world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor and a privilege for me to be here among all of you this morning at this special conference. I probably, as a newcomer or an outsider in this area, I really think that this conference will initiate many, many good points and start further interest in bioethics, which is very, very important for the sustainability of our world. Science and technology has advanced a whole lot. Particularly in the past few decades, we see steep growth in all the advancement of science and technology. But I think that with the rapid advancement of science and technology, something very, very scary is also looming out there. It has imposed a very serious impact on the social, cultural, and ethical lives of people in this world. And this may well be a very, very important reason why the Asian Bioethics Association have started, and also many conferences has been going on in the past decade. For this particular conference, I must say that this conference has been made possible through many layers of cross-organizational collaborations. At Chulalongkorn University, the collaboration began with the joint effort of the Center for Ethics of Science and Technology, which is a research unit in the Faculty of Arts, and the College of Public Health, whose main focus is on graduate programs and research. Well, taking two organizations in a university to work closely together is not an easy task. I'm very happy that this has been done very professionally so that we have today. The collaboration has extended beyond the scope of the university to UNESCO Bangkok, to the APEC foresight of the National Science and Technology Development Agency and the Thai National Health Foundation. I think these are very meaningful and productive collaborations that bring us the great success of today's conference. For Chulalongkorn University, the year 2007 is a very important year for us because it marks the 90th anniversary of our university. And in about a week, we will celebrate this special occasion. As the oldest and prestigious university in the country, we have many things to do. Certainly, we will reflect on our past achievements and our unfinished task during the past 90 years, and also on what we'll have to do for the future, both the future of Thailand and the future of the world. And I do believe that bioethics and the studies of the relations between science, technology, social, cultural, ethics will figure prominently in that vision. And the successful collaboration between all these things will certainly make this world a little bit far away from the doomed future that we have seen if we let just science and technology go along without ethics going with it. Finally, I think I have to say something about our supporters. Without them, today will be difficult to manage. I would like to thank the Wellcome Trust and the World Health Organization, whose grants have enabled many participants to be here today. We also got grants from the UNESCO Bangkok, and the Center for Ethics and Science and Technology South has provided some funds for this, and also many other organizations that have support, and all of this contribute to the success of this conference. I would like to thank the Asian Bioethics Association for providing Chulalongkorn University with this opportunity to host and co-host the UNESCO Bangkok of this 8th annual meeting. I think this is very important. If our scientists and people that work in technology has bioethics within their hearts, I really wish that it will grow big and fast enough to take care of our world. For those who still haven't had that, I really wish that bioethics and everything else on the soft side will be planted in their hearts, and that they will all join hand in hands to make this world a better place to live. I would like to end my note by wishing you all a very successful conference, and I do hope also that you will find some time to enjoy Bangkok, not only bioethics and the academic side of this conference. We really wish you a very, very happy stay in Bangkok and Thailand, and wish you all the success in this special conference. Thank you very much.
And also, Professor Yongyut, the minister, has another important function. So I would like to invite him to give his lecture first. Professor Yongyut.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank Professor Sakamoto and Professor Darul Mesa for consenting to, in fact, suggesting that I should give the talk first before I also go away, because bioethics is not just an abstract problem, it's a real problem. And we have a problem right now in Thailand, at least on two fronts that the Prime Minister would like me to report to urgently. And it's the problem of the haze in the north and the problem of water pollution in the central part of Thailand. And both of them certainly have a lot to do with bioethics practice in science and technology. So thank you, Dr. Sorat and Professor Mesa and the organizers of this conference for inviting me to this conference. This is at least the third time that I'm addressing this important topic. I remember the first time was also organized by Professor Sorat, second time Professor Mesa, and this third time is like a synthesis of the various points. And certainly the points have changed. There are new paradigms in science and technology that are occurring every day. We used to think that science really is something that is shielded, from the various ups and downs of everyday life, because if we just pursue knowledge for knowledge's sake, then we assume that applications, and these would be only benefits and not risks. Application would come sooner or later. But now we know more, and we have already passed from the age of what Vannevar Bush called science the endless frontier. We already passed that age to the age where we should say society is the endless frontier, and we really need to use science and technology for that purpose. And we have really certainly passed many things behind. A physicist friend of mine reminded me that Einstein's theory of relativity is not true in one aspect, and it is that science and technology does travel faster than light. And you can compare the situation 20 years ago with today, when 20 years ago the computer was so expensive and massive, and today it's everywhere, so small and so powerful. Genetic engineering was something of an academic nature, and now it happens even in school laboratories. 10 years ago, mobile phones were just huge chunks that you have to carry, big weight, and now it's everywhere, and the internet is everywhere, and the word nanotechnology was almost non-existent 10 years ago, and nowadays everyone claims to be nanotechnologists. So science and technology are certainly moving faster than light, and certainly moving faster than our ability to understand the implications, as the previous two speakers have already mentioned. So we have, for example, issues on access to science and technology. On the one hand, we have more access. For example, we have both more and less access. The digital divide seems to imply that we have less access to science and technology, at least to digital technology, from certain groups of people, and that seems to be true. But also, it has been noted that the world is now flatter, as political liberation as well as the mode of operations of the economies nowadays allow people to really to mingle, and if you only can access education, then you really have a passport to do anything anywhere in the world. So the playing field is leveled in that sense. Now I would like to, since this is bioethics conference, I would like to pay a little more attention on the biotech divide. I have not heard this a lot, but I think it's something similar to the digital divide, and it is really the divide between those who can and cannot access modern biotechnologies, either as consumers or as producers. And in the Thai society itself, we can think about the people who have this divide within the society, but you can also think of it globally, between countries like Thailand and more developed countries. And also, since Thailand is really kind of on the middle of the development index, we can also think of a divide between Thailand and the less developed countries. There's tension there also. And I note in passing that we are perhaps on the verge of also having to contend with another divide, which is the nanotech divide, which is coming. So ethical issues include safety of new products. We were wondering whether the cell phones are safe for our ears and so on. So there are concerns about safety for the consumers as well as for the environment. And for biotechnology in particular, concerns about biosafety. Still concerns about GMOs, although that is now much, much less than, say, 10 years ago. There are now more concerns on cloning and stem cells application, especially on the ethical front, as well as on the safety front. Concerns on nano-safety, health concerns for these nanoparticles, which seem to be able to penetrate membranes much more than the normal microparticles. Therefore, new products must take safety issues into account well before even the products are being developed for the market. I have earlier compared the situation of science and technology with the Japanese popular creature, Godzilla. In fact, I think he, or maybe she, is rather lovable. She looks rather nice to me. Anyway, science and technology has created a Godzilla. Is that problem, or maybe not just one Godzilla, because as we see there are so many divides, maybe we have created many of them. Oh, becoming bigger. So issues for ethical, social, and legal considerations, I would just like to go into a little bit more detail, and I may need to be very fast. In biotechnology, in cloning, I already said that there are now issues not only involving the divide between the rich and the poor, but there's also the moral issues, the ethical issues on cloning. So there are factors, technical factors that I need not go into. The genomics, there are issues on pharmacogenomics, and that is the use of genomics for development of drugs, or for treatment of people, or for prevention of diseases. There's issues about cost and equity, because they may be more costly. These drugs may be more costly and therefore may enhance the biotech divide in terms of medical access. So there are deciding factors that need to be considered, and we have no time to go into them. But a few years ago, Francis Fukuyama has raised concerns very similar to what Professor Suchada has raised before she left. Fukuyama asked, how far do we let biotech go? Because the current regulatory bodies are inadequate to deal with future choices, such as we are now on the verge of being able to manipulate genes which modify behavior. We've already got chemicals which can modify behavior many years ago. How do we use the drugs, or are there regulations that need to be complied more strictly for using drugs which alter moral character? And there are certainly drugs and treatments which can extend life with impact on economies, international relations, and even new ideas generation. Imagine if we do not die, but simply survive. Each one of us, simply survive another 50 years or maybe even 100 years. Imagine what would happen to the world, to humanity. It would be, there would be really a lot of catastrophe that follows. And what about creating designer babies? We are already on the verge of being able to do so. But do we want to design our babies? There are issues concerning other areas in science and technology. And since I think UNESCO is now quite concerned about energy technology, I would just like to raise it as another issue apart from biotechnology. So we are already concerned with pollution from oil, gas, and coal, as we know. Pollution not only in terms of particles, but in terms of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. The technologies for reducing greenhouse gas, certainly. But for example, technologies for collecting carbon dioxide and maybe put it in a solid form somewhere under the earth. But there would be risks and benefits for doing that. So should we go ahead and think about that, or should we just stop it early? There are threats to biodiversity and environment from use of renewable technologies. At first we thought that renewable technologies like wind turbines, solar waves, they're all innocuous technologies, only beneficial. But when you think of it the other way around, there are also implications that not all of them are good. They are mostly good, but there are certainly adverse aspects. For example, for biodiversity. Imagine if there are wind turbines everywhere, in the sea, in the land, in the forest, and so on. So this would be a real problem. And nuclear, we realize that perhaps we have to re-examine nuclear energy. But what about the old problems of nuclear material storage and waste, and probability of possibility of accidents? So I want to now have time to talk about my own concern, which made me write a short novel about 20 years ago when there was a total solar eclipse. By the way, today there's total solar eclipse, not total, but partial solar eclipse. But unfortunately, I think the cloud has marred it. I tried to see it this morning, I couldn't. But anyway, the solar, technology, solar energy would certainly be much more accessible in the future. So we should think about its ethical implications early. There's issues on risk management, types of risks that are involved in any new technologies. Technical risk certainly to both the environment and the consumers. And there's also risk of public perception or political risks. For example, I think the case of GMO is a splendid case to demonstrate the political risk or risk of public perception, which has gone quite opposite to what the scientists and technologists were thinking right from the beginning. And of course, there's market risk. We need to manage these risks. We have to do risk and benefit analysis, and we have to try to use what is called precautionary principle. But if we use it too strictly, then we become afraid to do anything. So I would like to say reasonable precautionary principle for risk prevention and mitigation. We also have a lot of issues now, especially in order to talk with the developed countries on the intellectual property management, on ownership and sovereignty over genetic resources, natural and developed ones. For example, we here can think about farmers' rights or indigenous rights of the people who have the biodiversity, but the scientists from developed countries could think about the rights, intellectual property rights, when they take the genetic resources, which they take as kind of nature's, free gifts, and develop further. So, who owns those kind of properties, which are a mixture between indigenous, biodiversity, properties, plus the properties from intellectual, from the use of research and technology. Is it common property of mankind, or is it something that only create, of benefit and should be of benefit to the people who have developed that? So in closing, I'm bringing up Godzilla again. And I would like to remind people who maybe, I also learned about this recently, that Godzilla actually came out from its peaceful territory, already existed long, long ago. It only came out as a consequence of repeated nuclear bomb experiments. That is the story. So Godzilla was just resting peacefully, but we brought her into into the world to interact with us. And indeed, the scientist, a young scientist, did find a way to destroy Godzilla. I learned that. However, his invention could also be used as a weapon of mass destruction. So, people who are afraid of weapons of mass destruction, Tony Blair and Bush would not allow that, certainly. So, what to do? To solve the dilemma, he decided to burn all his documents and to end his own life by facing Godzilla underwater. Unfortunately, I did not see that sequence, but it would have been very interesting. So, I just want to ask us here, can we be as brave? Can the biotechnologists or the physicists or whoever are assembled here, can we be as brave as these young scientists? So the future directions, I think that we should take steps towards good governance in science and technology. We should really have more concerns and discussions such as what we're having here on ethics of science and technology, but should not be limited to the educated to the scientifically literate people, but I think we should extend these discussions to lay people, even people who are inarticulate on science and technology. And we should think about voluntary codes or guidelines. The word codes, is a toxic word to many people. So maybe we should not use the word codes, but guidelines, or at least some kind of advice or suggestions for conduct on issues involving risks and ethics by scientists, industries, professional societies. And I recall the 1973 voluntary moratorium on genetic engineering, the so-called Asiloma conference. That was, I think, that can be used as an example, where the scientists came together and said, we are not sure that genetic engineering is safe. Let's have a moratorium. Let's cool it for, I think, 3 years or something like that. And then when they were sure that they could do it safely, then they resumed. So new laws may also be enacted, but I think a good sense of balance is needed. We should not panic too fast and too quickly. And the government certainly should oversee development and capability strengthening in both technical, social, and ethical issues, and wherever needed, set up regulations and laws as necessary, making sure having a healthy balance. And the civil societies, the NGOs, they have a valuable role, and the scientists as well have a valuable role. But they should help to make the public understand issues from various aspects, because these are complex issues. Too often the NGOs or the scientists themselves just have a single issue to say to the public. But indeed the issue is so complex that you need to make the public aware of many, many issues that are involved. And of course, education and research institutes like Chulalongkorn University, co-organizer of this conference, should acquire knowledge and understanding on issues interfacing between technology and society, and help to create healthy debates among the various stakeholders and the public. So I would end by quoting the word of Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize awardee in economics a few years ago. He said economies can be substantially enriched by paying more attention to ethics. And the study of ethics can also benefit from a closer contact with economies, with economics. So I would like to say something a little different, but very similar. That science and technology can certainly be substantially enriched by paying more attention to ethics. And the study of ethics can also benefit from closer contact with science and technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Yogyut. As previously mentioned, we have a very important meeting with the Prime Minister, so we have to leave early. Next, I would like to invite Professor Hyakudai Sakamoto, founding president of the Asian Bioethics Association, to give a message. Professor Sakamoto.
Thank you, Chairman. And ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased and honored to give some greetings in this occasion of 8th Congress of our Asian Bioethics Association here at Bangkok. This association was first organized in Beijing, China in 1995, just 12 years ago, in the name of the East Asian Association of Bioethics, EAAB. Why East Asian? Because I, as a founder, hold a close cultural affinity only to the Chinese continent and Korean Peninsula and Japanese islands. And I did not notice any bioethical movement in other parts of Asia at that time. Directly after the inauguration of the association, however, we received very strong interest and widespread advice to expand this bioethics initiative to first South and Southeast Asia, and then even to the West and the Middle and the Near East Asia, namely to the whole Asia. Following to this keen demands at the second Congress, the UNESCO Asian Bioethics Conference, which is held in Kobe in 1997, we changed the name to simply the Asian Bioethics Association, ABA. So accordingly, we are now enjoying enthusiastic participation from every district of the whole Asia. In 2005, we finally held a great and successful international congress in Santiulfur, Turkey, that is West Asia, with our colleague, Professor Sahin Aksoy, who is here, I hope. Professor Aksoy here. Now we are going to open the 8th Congress of our association in Bangkok here, Thailand, the first time in the Southeast Asia. We together with you wish to celebrate the great success of the Congress and also hope the further prosperity of future Asian bioethics in Southeast Asia. But what is Asian bioethics other than and different from the standard Euro-American bioethics? I myself have some idea about this and have published a couple of papers on this topic. Very fortunately, some of them have been studied in this country, Thailand. I quite appreciate Professor Suraj Hongrataro of the Chulalongkorn University here, who scrutinized my ideas on the internet media, from which I myself learned very much. He is but little critical about my view, for I am not dealing with the Southeast Asia. Really speaking, I do not know much about Southeast Asia. I heartily wish it is a very precious occasion to learn much about Southeast Asia, especially about Thailand, and then so deeply the Asian bioethics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sakamoto, for commenting on my paper, and I learned it very good. Next, I would like to invite Professor Mesa to welcome on behalf of the UNESCO.
Thank you, Sarah. So on behalf of UNESCO, I welcome you to this important regional gathering of experts from around the world. The 8th Asian Bioethics Conference is concurrent with the 2nd UNESCO Bangkok Bioethics Roundtable. And this regional conference follows on from a decade of regular bioethics conferences and seminars that many of us in this room have conducted around Asia and the Pacific. And as the Secretary of the Asian Bioethics Association, it's a sincere pleasure to see the development of so many scholars conducting original research in the context of their own cultures, which is the foundational goal we have for the Asian Bioethics Association, and also the mandate of UNESCO's Ethics of Science and Technology program. Now, networking partners in the development of ethics in this region, I think, passed a critical phase also in 2006 with the establishment of the UNESCO Asia Pacific School of Ethics, which brings together many active institutions and individuals collaborating with the regional unit in social and human sciences in Asia and the Pacific, Russia, of UNESCO, in coordination with the Division of Ethics of Science and Technology in UNESCO Paris, to meet the needs and priorities of the region for bioethics research. Currently, the school includes around 20 partner institutions and 70 individuals involved in collaborative research and activities, and I very much hope by the end of this week we will have set upon many more partners. The criteria for membership is output-based, to recognize they're actively involved in the UNESCO regional ethics programs. The goal is that all members will become self-sustaining in funding through multiple partnerships and networking, and to build sustainable outputs that can influence policy. I think half the members currently are actively involved in bioethics education, which was a theme already raised this morning, both in areas of environmental ethics and medical ethics. And both of these are major priorities for the region. In July 2006, the UNESCO Asia Pacific Conference on Bioethics Education was held jointly with the National Commission of UNESCO in Korea at Aowa Women's University in Seoul. A regional action plan defining goals and targets for bioethics education was developed, and the assembly and maintenance of online free access teaching resources, adaptations and transmissions into different languages are ongoing. We also have available here for free the yellow book at the end, which is a compilation of some of the materials, and we are gradually gathering more and more materials and translations and adaptations. The details of many regional bioethics meetings can be obtained from the internet, which brings both benefits to us as well as the questions of digital divide that were raised before. In this meeting, I also seek partners for new projects with a broad project on the ethics of energy technologies, the use of museums to teach ethics of science and technology, and strategies to examine community engagement for the implementation of international bioethics guidelines. The development of the Regional School of Ethics is a result of recent focus in the region on the ethics given by the United Nations or specialized agencies. To build upon earlier origins in the development of dialogue across the region, since 1997, UNESCO Asian Bioethics Conference, which we organized in Kobe, Japan. It was at this 1997 meeting that UNESCO Ethics and the Asian Bioethics Association were launched. And it's fitting that a decade later, in 2007, we also have a joint meeting. Meetings conducted in Asia since the late 1980s on bioethics have taken a variety of formats, including panel debates, roundtables, conducted in Japan and many other countries. In the past 2.5 years, UNESCO Bangkok has coordinated the regional ethics in social and human sciences in UNESCO, and conducted workshops on ethics partnerships for Asia and the Pacific, consultation meetings on codes of conduct for scientists and engineers in Tokyo, New Delhi, Bangkok, and Seoul, and rotating conferences, usually with national commissions of UNESCO, in Dunedin and Seoul, in Beijing, Shanghai, Iran, Jakarta, and regional bioethics workshops in numerous cities around the region. Many of the collaborators of those meetings are present today. These intense meetings are important to follow up the 2005 meetings of the 4th session of the World Commission on Ethics of Science and Technology in Bangkok, and the 12th session of the International Bioethics Committee in Tokyo. The Commerce meeting was hosted by the government of Thailand through the Ministry of Science and Technology in cooperation with UNESCO. And we have been honored today to have the Minister of Science and Technology of Thailand, Professor Yongyu, who also happened to deliver the keynote opening at the Commerce session. He came together with us again. And we also have lectures in this meeting from the Vice Chairs of UNESCO's International Bioethics Committee, Professor Leonardo de Castro, and later in a meeting from Vice Chair of Comments, Professor Sang Song, and the Thai member of Comments, Dr. Samsak Harris. In the first UNESCO Bangkok Bioethics Roundtable in September 2005, we saw 100 papers presented in plenary with the majority of time and discussion. This allowed debates on the methods and results of research and how to link this to policy needs in a variety of cultures. But it's still, I think, a major challenge for us today to link research into sound policy. UNESCO provides a forum to be neutral but practical elaboration of how we can implement global bioethics standards into the cultural realities of each community and how each society can rediscover their long-standing ethical traditions in a way that they can apply them to the emerging ethical dilemmas of modern science and technology. In the forthcoming few weeks, I'll also be organising UNESCO Bioethics Roundtables in Indonesia, Fiji and Samoa. These fora for consultation on specific projects will set the stage for what is planned to be an even more intense year of activities across the region. And one of the principles of these meetings is that they are open to all, encouraging high standards of peer review and critical reflection, while at the same time building a holistic and multidisciplinary community that is working with UNESCO across the region to build a more ethical future for reflection and progress. In closing, I thank all of you for coming. I thank our partners, Chulalongkorn University and SORAT, and for very hard work, and many other people in the College of Public Health. A handful of those of us here today have been at all 8 Asian Bioethics conferences since the first one in 1995 in Beijing, where we established the East Asian Association of Bioethics. Some others are attending their first Asian Bioethics conference. We welcome you all to this occasion and trust you can enjoy the intense meeting, the chance to make friendships with persons from a wide range of countries across the region, and together to engage in this dialogues. Thank you.
I would like to invite Professor.
What were important to mention here. And then I realized that I had such a long list that I had to cut down for this presentation. And I have the bad habit of tampering with my presentation the morning before I present it. So if there are some kinks, please, I apologize in advance. Let me begin by showing you this picture from the UNESCO Global Ethics Observatory. The darkened areas are supposed to represent the countries that have bioethics institutions, and the white ones are the countries where there are none. That is among those that have registered with this particular UNESCO office. So if your country is colored white, then we have to correct with UNESCO, and I'm sure there are a lot of corrections that have to be made. For example, Mongolia is one country that is colored white. Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and making this special mention of the countries to push those who have not been registered to have themselves counted. There's Afghanistan. I don't know if there's anybody from Afghanistan here. And Nepal. I'm sure there are countries that are mentioned here that are actually active in bioethics. Nepal, I'm sure, is one of them. Myanmar is in the list, and then Laos, People's Democratic Republic, is active. Papua New Guinea, I've met some people from the country who are engaged in bioethics. Okay, so I've started with a long list, but I brought this list of just 3 for this presentation. And I'll talk about what I call the challenge of identity, the challenge of regional integration, that is, of growing together. And third, the challenge of poverty. Poverty, because even the UNESCO Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights pays special attention to the need from the scientific community to do something about the world's poverty. And in connection with the first challenge that I have listed here, I think we can ask, what is Asian about Asian bioethics? Something that Professor Sakamoto alluded to earlier. And how do we maintain our Asian identity? Concerning the second challenge, we can ask, how do we face the problems that concern us all? And I'm going to go through some, well, actually, an illustration of problems that we face all together. And third, how do we use bioethics to break the bonds of poverty, as if we can do it? So, in a previous Asian Bioethics Congress, I gave a presentation asking, is there an Asian bioethics? Sora reacted a bit later. Asian bioethics, what is it? And is there such a thing? Is it a kind of animal? I was thinking of actually dealing with his presentation here as a guest of his during this meeting, but I thought it would require more than the time that we have. And then you have other people in the area asking, is there a global bioethics? The idea is to assert the uniqueness of an Asian perspective. And Professor Sakamoto, if I understand him correctly, wants to assert Asian ascendancy. Think of an Asian bioethics as a global bioethics, or as a model for global bioethics. And then you have a lot of other Asian bioethicists looking at bioethics from an Asian perspective. There are those who call attention to the tension between biomedical technology and Confucian values.